Designing components that are made from more than one material is inherently more complex than when there's just one material type involved. You have to consider the material itself, but also there is the sequencing and the process around taking a component that starts with one material and adding another. There's the bonding process too, and how you're going to achieve that. So it can be more complex, but this video is intended to give you a few ideas as to how you can best work towards creating your bonded material component. So one of the main considerations is how many materials and companies are involved. So obviously the more materials, the more processes, the more stages and the more companies that are involved, the more complex the whole thing will become. And what's really important is that whatever materials you're using, that those materials are being processed by somebody who is an expert in that material, rather than using a one-stop shop where the expertise is lacking. The second thing to consider is the environment and the bond strength required. So it's obviously really important to test any material in the environment in which it's going to be used, to check it against the mechanical stresses and the environment and the wears and tears that are going to happen to it. But it's really important to also consider the effect of the environment and the wear and tear on the bond strength. Which brings us on to the third point, which is how are you actually going to do the bonding? What bonding method are you going to use? So at MeadeX we use two main forms. We use chemical bonding and we use mechanical bonding. And it may be, depending on the material, that one is suitable or perhaps it's the other, or sometimes even a combination of both. So the fourth thing is to really plan the process. So with a number of different materials involved, it's really important to know those material lead-in times and the production times, especially if there's a number of different companies involved. Some materials require specialist treatment, pre-bonding or post-bonding, and all of that needs to be taken into account. It's a really good idea to get all parties involved around a table to sit down and bottom out the process, including the testing regime and any certification that is required. The fifth and final point is that prototyping is essential, and of course with regards to the product we generally know that in terms of testing the product in its actual environment and under the wear and tear and pressures that it's going to face. But actually prototyping the process can be really important here if it is complicated and if there are multiple organisations involved, to actually look at how the process could be done differently. So prototyping the process as well as the product, really important for bonded material components. So to summarise, there are 5 things that we would advise you consider when you are looking at designing bonded material components. The first one is how many materials and companies are involved and trying to keep those to a minimum. The second is the environmental impact on the bond strength itself. Thirdly, the bonding method. Are you going to use a chemical method, a mechanical method, or a combination of both? Then there is properly planning through the process, making sure that everybody involved in the process is really clear about what the process is going to be. And then finally, as well as prototyping the product and the component itself, is also prototyping that process and looking at ways to improve efficiency and ultimately to reduce lead times.